Hello friends, welcome to another tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to implement a fully functional authentication API. So without further ado, let us get started. New repository, or you can actually clone this repository if you want. I'm going to call it drf-authentication-rest API, and git ignore is for Python. License, let me put MIT, and then create repository. I've created the repository. Now I'm going to clone it. Let me go to my local directory, which is under C. Then I'm going to do a git clone. Right, we're done, and I'm going to check inside. Right, so this is how our project looks like. This is how it's empty. Now we need to create our own virtual environment. As usual, always create a virtual environment. This is where we save all the dependencies that we need for that project. We don't want to use one centralized env file for all our projects. Each project has its own dependencies. So it's a good thing you have your virtual environments separated by each project. So we have our virtual environment installed. Let us activate the environment. So guys, if you're using Linux, the command is different. It's source env bin activate. That's how you activate your virtual environment. And then we're going to install Django, pip install Django. Let's wait for everything to finish up. All right, so we have Django already installed. We have this warning. This is just a minor warning that you get. If you haven't updated your pip, you will not have an opportunity to install the latest version of your dependencies. Like for instance, if I said pip install Django, if the pip is up to date, I can literally install the latest version of Django. We have Django installed. Now we need to install Django Rest Framework. So let us go to the Python package index, and then we see the version that we have, which is Django Rest Framework. This is the version that we need. And if you need to read through the documentation, you can just go through it. This is how they show you how to install it. You just do pip install Django Rest Framework. So let's install Django Rest Framework. Django Rest Framework is used to develop REST APIs. Installation has completed. Now we don't have an application. We don't have an application or a Django project. What we do is we type the command Django admin start project. So I'm going to call this project core. We have our project which has been created, core. Okay, let us go to the folder and then check out the directory. So the directory looks like this. Let us open our code editor and check out the folders which exist there. We have only the core folder, which has the init file, init.py file, asg.py, urls.py, wizgid.py, and then manage.py. So these are the only things that has been generated. The next thing we need to create now the authentication application. Okay. I'm going to call this users. Let me just call it users, which makes sense. Okay, now let us look at the directory. We have our application which has been created. Let's go and check it out. So the app comes with a folder called migration, init.py file, admin.py file, app.py file, models.py, tests.py, views.py. So when you see this folder for migration, this migration folder is for handling any database migration and tracking any database migrations that have been done. And then this admin.py file enables us to view our models on the admin panel. So you can actually do some crude functionalities on the admin panel. You can actually register the models here, which you want them to be shown in the admin panel. The admin panel, I'll show you shortly after I finish explaining this. So this apps.py file identifies this app is called users, and the default autofield is django.db models.big autofield. So this you never change it. In a scenario when you want to update this file is when you are using signals. I'll teach you about signals in the future, but for now just work with what we have right now. In the models.py file, this is where you write your classes for defining your models. Your models are just when you defined your database relationships. So in this application, I already have my database relationship for the user. Before you even implement an application, you need to have a proper database structure which has been implemented somewhere. Now this on the test.py file, this is where you do the test. You just write the tests that you want to do against the functionalities that you want to implement. And then on the views part, this is where you implement actually the business logic for the endpoints. What are the endpoints? Endpoints are URLs that we use to access resources from the server. Okay, so here we are going to create different views. As I told you before, we are going to utilize Django Rest Framework because it contains generic views that makes it very easy to implement your own endpoints without even implementing a lot of things. It's so easy with only like 4 lines of code and you're done, right? Then manage.py file, this file you'll never change it. Or if you are doing some complex thing like maybe um, you are doing some maybe you want to add some functionalities for maybe Celery, which is another tutorial which I'm looking forward to show you guys how to use Celery. It's a Python library that we use actually for background tasks. You will rarely change it unless you will have to. And then what you're going to do is register this application. Also register Django Rest Framework because we didn't. As you can see here from the documentation, let me just go to the installation part. You need to add this. You need to add this. You need to add REST framework in your installed apps. So let's go to installed apps. Let's add DRF, and then we're going to add users applications. When you don't register this users application, Django will not find it and you will not actually do anything with it. We are ready. We have installed DRF, which is Django Rest Framework, and we have registered our application. Now, what you're going to do is we are going to define our database relationships. All right, guys. Now we are ready to start implementing this, but first of all, let's update our requirements.txt file. So guys, let us update our dependencies and save them in the requirements.txt file. So what we are doing is this command pip freeze, and then you use the greater sign and then requirements.txt will create a requirements.txt with the dependencies that we installed in this environment that we have activated. These are our requirements. We are good to go. Class user. What we are going to do, we are going to use a Django inbuilt user, abstract user, so that we can actually utilize it because it has the necessary fields that we need. So we are going to import from django.contrib.auth.models import. We're going to import abstract user and then name equals to models dot char field, which will be max length. We are looking for 100. Then null equals to true, blank equals to true. Then before that, guys, we need to create a timestamp model so that we have created that and updated that to be just inherited and be used in the rest of the models. We're going to use this timestamp model and then timestamp and then def string self done self.name. All right, guys. In the future, you can think about adding multiple roles to a user. So instead of having this as a foreign key here in the user model, you can have it as a many-to-many field, which you can add multiple roles for the user. This is something you can just investigate and also implement further when you have already done the full implementation. We are now going to define the user model. We need to import UUID. The UUID is a universal unique identifier. It is a 128-bit value used to uniquely identify an object or entity on the internet. Why are we using this? The reason I'm using this is we don't want somebody to predict the user ID. Okay, if I leave it this way, like we don't specify the ID to be generated as UUID, the issue will be when somebody has access to one of the endpoints which you search a user by ID and you just put a random number like 1, 2, 3, 4, that person will likely find a user in that system who has been registered with that ID. I'm going to specify ID equals to models dot char field. The UUID is a char field, and then max length is equals to 100, and then unique is true, so the characters will be unique. Then default equals UUID dot UUID4, and then primary key equals to true. Right, so this looks good. I'm just going to paste all of this and then remove this. Foreign key is raw, and then on delete models dot cascade. Okay, let me just put null equals to true and blank equals to true. So the reason I'm putting this null and blank is to true is because there's some situation when you create an object and then you don't specify this, you will be told that you must include that field. Okay, so if you missed out to add the role, you will have an issue, you'll have an error. So the display name is correct, need to install Cloudinary, but for now I'm going to comment that part, which will be, I'll show you this in another video, how to upload using Cloudinary. Our main objective is to implement an authentication API. We already have this, we have the models, they look good. Okay, we have the role model, you have the timestamp model, things they look good. Now the next thing is to create our managers inside this folder. Let us create inside our users folder, let's create managers. py manager is the interface through which database query operations are provided to Django model. We are going to create a custom manager. This is still what I implemented, so this is the custom manager. You can actually go through the code. This custom manager will be used by this model, this user model. This custom manager will be used to create the super user and also create a user. We are actually customizing how this manager will be working when a user will be created. Okay, so the next thing is to use that custom manager, and we need to import it, add from. So we have imported our custom manager. We are using it for this user model. All right, guys, so we are good to go. So we defined our models, and then we created our custom manager, which we are going to use it. The first thing that we are going to do is make migrations, so that we create the migration files, which will be located in the migration folder, right? So after we run that, you'll notice that migration files will be created based on the model definitions that we did here. Okay, so let us do this. Let us make migrations. We have an issue, so name error, underscore is not defined. Okay, let's go and look at that code. I think it's because of the Django version. Okay, let's remove this. Let's remove this. Let's remove this. Let's remove this. I was using this with a different Django version, so it was working. I think that is, let's go to the next step, which is to make migrations. We still have the issue, so this issue comes from models.py line of 28. Models.py line 28, line 28. Let's remove this. Okay, guys, I was using, wait a minute. Okay, guys, I was using different Django version, so that's why I'm getting that issue. So this must be unique. The email field must be unique. We will not be having any issue. Reverse accessor, we are going to use this user model, so we need to change that in the settings.py file. Just put this auth user model, which will be users.model. We're going to use the auth user model, which is the users dot model. This one, that's what we're going to use. Let's run this again. Migrations have been applied and this file has been created. Right now, the database does not have any tables, does not have anything. Our database is db.sqlite. We don't have anything on that database. We are going to migrate so that we create the tables for role and then the user. You can see we have applied all the migrations. So that you can view everything through the admin portal, you can just create a new super user, create super user. You run this command. I'm going to say admin at example.com admin, and then we're good to go. Multiple values for keyword argument. All right, guys, so let me just remove this, the role. I'm going to change this to be car field, and then remove this. Excellent. Okay, guys, this is the updated version of our model. So the role is a car field, okay? And then let's go back to the managers. We have the create super user, which looks good. And then we remove this. We have the create super user, which looks good in this custom user manager. And then extra fields, let's remove this. We are not putting anything. We get the roles. I think this should work, guys. Let's just update our migrations. Where is this row? Yep, remove this. Don't need it.